iOS 18 on the left, iOS 26 beta 1 on the right. That way you can see all of the differences side by side. And we're going to start off with the brand new glass-like redesign that has taken over iOS 26. So every single app icon on your home screen is going to change with this update. Some are going to be more dramatic than others, like the camera app, the settings app, applications like the playground, shortcuts, clock. Some of these applications are going to be drastically different than they were before, but every single app icon is going to have a new look. And you might need a dark wallpaper to see this, but take a look at the light on all of the app icons because it will actually shimmer and move as you move your device. So it uses the gyroscope built into your iPhone, and you will actually see the light refracting off of the icons. It's a really awesome touch to the design here with iOS 26. And you will notice this glass-like design change pretty much everywhere throughout iOS. So even if you go into the control center, for example, take a look at the difference there. The notification center bubbles look a lot different than they did before, along with the time up top and also the buttons down here on the lock screen. If you go into jiggle mode on the home screen, you will see that the minus icon for all of our app icons has a clear look now, along with the buttons up top and also the little grabber there for the widgets. So just know that you're going to see a lot of changes throughout iOS 26, both in settings, UI elements, pretty much everywhere. Everything is going to have a slightly different look than it had in iOS 18. Now, going back to the home screen here, let's go back into that customized view because we do have a change here. If we go into edit up top, you will notice that first off, we have the glyph icons to the left now instead of to the right. We also have a new edit wallpaper button right there. If you tap on that, that will take us to this screen right here where we can edit our wallpaper down there by tapping in the bottom. And if you go into the customized view for your app icons, we do have a couple of changes here as well. So if you go into dark, for example, you now have the option to change this from auto or always. So if you want it to always stay in dark mode, you can do that. Also, we have clear, so you can now change your app icons to have this clear look, and then you can change the clear icons from either a light mode like so or a dark mode like so. So I think the light mode looks good on a dark background and the dark mode looks better on a light background like this one, or you can set that to auto. And then we also have tinted. We have a slightly new UI here for tinted. You can see it's changed right there. And then we also have light, dark, and auto for tinted icons as well. Also before, if you wanted to change the app icon size, you just had this little slider right here that said small or large. Now it's this icon over here to the right. So you just tap on that and it changes the app icons from small to large. And when I talked about the design change, here's another example of that. When you go to remove a widget, just this little pop-up right here, you'll see this throughout iOS as well. It's more circular, and you can see the cancel and remove buttons are not only different shapes, so they're circles, they're also separated, and also the cancel is no longer blue, it is now black. Now if we head over to the lock screen, we have a couple of changes here as well. So if we go into the customized view, first off, this is circular now. The plus is also slightly larger and it's also white instead of blue. But if we go to customize, before in iOS 18, it was kind of redundant because you had to tap on lock screen again to customize the lock screen. Now it just goes straight into this customize view. And if you want to change the wallpaper, you just tap right there and you can choose the photo to change for the lock screen. And you'll also notice that the widgets can be placed below down here at the bottom. It doesn't have to be right below the time. It can actually be down here near the bottom of the lock screen. Now for that to be the case, this has to be larger than default. If this is the default size, you can move the widgets up here to the top, just like we're used to. But if you make the time a little bit larger with this grabber here, which is also new in iOS 26, you can make it really large like this. You can make it large and then add the widgets down here at the bottom. Now the reason you can make this large is for subjects. Obviously it doesn't look good in this wallpaper, but let me show you an example of where this looks good. So if you go over to my cat right here, here's an example of where the time is larger. And we also have this little spatial photo. Check this out. It moves like that. The way I was able to do that is if you go to customize and you choose one of your subjects, whether that's a person or a pet, you could tap this button right here to create a spatial scene. So when you tap on that, it will create a spatial scene and you can see it before you even save it as well. So that looks pretty awesome. And you can change the size, of course, of the time back there. And you'll also notice a difference with the notifications when they come in. So we have a slightly new animation here. So you can see that's what it's like on iOS 18. That's what it's like on iOS 26. And if you go to the home screen, you can see that same change as well. So if I send send a message, you can see that the animation is different in iOS 26. It kind of just pops in and it has a little bouncy effect compared to what we saw in iOS 18. Now you might be wondering how I got my always on display to look so cool, where it blurs my background and then it just kind of comes to life like that. Well, that's also new in iOS 26, because if you go into your settings and into display and brightness, and then down here to the bottom to always on display, we have a brand new toggle for blur wallpaper photo. Now here's a pretty interesting change in iOS 26. So if you go ahead and take a screenshot on your device, we have a couple of changes here. So first off, you'll notice that mine just automatically went to full screen mode. It did not save it down in the bottom like it did previously. That's actually a toggle that you can turn off if you don't like that. But I actually like the fact that this is, kind of takes you straight to the markup view now. And the reason I like that is not just because you can mark it up easily, but also because if you look down there at the bottom, it says highlight to search. We actually basically have circle to search now if you have an Apple Intelligence device. So if I were to circle something, check this out. It will search for Google Images for whatever I just selected and show me, what it thinks it sees right there, which is pretty cool. If it does not answer it for you, you can use ChatGPT as well right here with this ask button. So if you tap on that, it will ask ChatGPT automatically what it sees, and it will respond pretty quickly to tell you what it sees in that photo. Now, if you don't have Apple Intelligence, we still have some design changes up top. So you can see that we have an X button up in the top left, a check mark up in the top right, along with our markup and our export right there. So that is a bit different. It looks a lot better in my opinion. Also, if you're on a web page, for example, and you take a screenshot and it picks up on certain dates and different things like that, you can actually add to calendar right away after you take a screenshot using this feature. And it also pulled the address that it sees in that image as well, which is pretty neat. So I tap on add to calendar, it will automatically detect any dates and add that to my calendar, as you can see right there. Obviously it's not well defined in here, but you can edit that and create it straight from there. But it gets even better, because if you go into your settings and then go to general and then scroll down, we have a brand new section for the first time ever in iOS for screen capture. So we have a whole section dedicated to screenshots and options for screenshots. So we have full screen previews, which again is when you take a screenshot, it just shows the full screen right away. If you don't like that, you can turn that off. That way it just gives you the old default where it just pops up down here. Then you can tap on it and mark it up if you would like to. There's also automatic visual lookup. You have CarPlay screenshots and also format. If you want to see HDR or SDR, you can set that. Now you might have already noticed this, but if you go into your Spotlight search or really anywhere on iOS, we have a new keyboard in iOS 26. So take a look at the keyboard down at the bottom. Not only do we have little rounded edges right here, but also the keyboard is a little bit darker, and also the keys behind each letter are a little bit darker. Also, the space bar no longer says space, and search no longer says search, it just has the search glyph icon. Now here's a feature that you probably will not notice right away after using iOS 26, but it's actually going to become quite handy, and it's a really great quality of life feature. So that is that before on iOS 18 and previous iOS versions, if you wanted to go back in a menu, whether you're in settings, music, notes, wherever, you would have to swipe over from the edge to go back. So like this, you would be able to go back to a previous menu or whatever. Well, now with iOS 26, you don't have to go all the way to the edge. You could be all the way over here. If you just swipe, if you make the swiping gesture back, it will go back for you. So again, I'll show you again. Before, you could not do that on iOS 18. If you swiped over from anywhere, it would not allow you to unless you were all the way on the edge. Now you can do it from anywhere with a simple swipe back. I love it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about this control center, because yes, it does look a lot different. It's very glassy. It's a little bit overly glassy in my opinion right now, but there are some extra functions in here as well. So if we go to add a control right here, you can see this interface is also a little bit darker than it was previously. And we have a few new controls that I'm just going to run through really quickly. So first off, we have name recognition. This is a new accessibility feature that's now in Control Center. Also, if we search for Dock Kit, we now have background mode for Dock Kit. That is for gimbals. We have local capture, and then we also have hover text. So before we had hover typing, now we also have hover text, which is another vision accessibility feature. But most importantly for me in iOS 26, we have some great new background sounds. So if you're somebody like me who really loves the background sounds built into iOS, you're going to love this update. So if we go ahead to our ear right here and haptic press on that and go to background sounds, check this out. So now, before it only went down to fire, now we have several new background sounds. So we have babble, steam, airplane, boat, bus, train, rain on roof, and quiet night. So all of those are new background sounds. And if we go into our background sounds settings, there's even more. So if we go into here, you can see first off, we have a new toggle up there. The toggle itself, the shape is a little bit different than it was before. Also the slider before, it was just this little circle and it would just move back and forth. But now with iOS 26, it's not only a new shape, but also if you go to swipe on it, you will see this really sleek glass-like effect. It's almost like a raindrop is on your cursor right here as you're moving it. It's so fluid and so smooth. I don't know why it's unnecessary, but I love it. And just look at the animation when you go back and forth like that. It's just beautiful. But there's even more because we also have the ability to have a timer for our background sounds. If you want your background sounds to end at a specific time or after a set amount of time, you can set that right here as well. And if you do have it set on a timer, you could also have it set to do this always. So for example, if you always go to bed at 7 p.m., you could have it automatically turn off at 7 p.m. every single night. But there's even more for background sounds because we also have EQ. So if you go into EQ, there's now an EQ specific for background sounds, for comfort and focus. And you also have the ability to change the balance, including using this right here to change where, the EQ is going in terms of, the fade or the balance, I should say, not the fade. Let's head into the camera because we see quite a redesign here as well. So the camera application looks so much cleaner on iOS 26 compared to iOS 18. So first off, take a look at this. So before we had video, photo, portrait, all those different modes just always in view and they were above the capture button. Now it's below the capture button and it starts by just showing video and photo and that's it. And if you go into this, if you start swiping, it will show the other modes right there with this really smooth little animation here when you scroll through the different modes. But also right here where it shows our lens modes, so 0.5x to 5x, those are also now kind of just floating. They don't have a background like they did before. Also up in the top left, we have this little JPEG menu. If you tap on that, it will show you the formats and resolution in one. Before, you had to tap on HEIF Max right here, and you just kind of have to guess. You'd have to hold on that, and then it would show you kind of the other options for that. It was kind of confusing if you didn't know what you were doing. Now it's a much simpler process and it's all in one menu, and that gets even better right here as well. When you tap on this little grid icon, it will show all the options down here. So like flash, live, timer, all that. Before you had to swipe up. It was kind of unknown if you didn't really know the camera app. So all those were down there. Now it's more obvious. And this gets even better in video as well. So if you go over to video, take a look at this menu up in the top left. This is also much cleaner and much easier to understand than iOS 18. So it shows your formats, your resolution, and your frame rates all in one section. And if you go into your camera settings, there's also a feature enabled by default for lens cleaning hints. So it will give you a little pop-up telling you that your lens might be dirty and you need to clean it to improve image quality. Now also if we go up, we do have other changes here as well. Under composition, we now have an indicators option. So if you go into that, you can turn off specific indicators for photo and for video. If you want that to be a little bit cleaner, you can turn off those indicators. And then if we go up right here into the camera control, we also have a couple of options in here. So this is more, just more detailed and better defined what it is. Also, if you go into camera adjustments, you can now reorganize your controls and also disable controls. So if you don't want exposure, for example, just uncheck it and then it will not show up. And then you also have your gesture and your camera adjustments kill switch right here. Now here is something that's going to cause some anxiety for some people just hearing it, but the Photos application got another redesign. But don't worry, it's better than iOS 18 because it basically brings back iOS 17's camera application and kind of combines it with iOS 18's Photos application. I know I just said camera application, I meant Photos application. So we now have library and collections. So we have two buttons down at the bottom. That's it. So now with library, it shows all of your recent photos right here in one spot. So before in iOS 18, when you took a photo, you were just brought to this screen right here where you had basically everything in one big long page. Everything was combined. It was kind of confusing, especially if you did not customize it yourself. But now with iOS 26, it's a lot easier because we just simply have library and there's nothing here except for your latest photos, and that is it. Now also, we do have over here collections. And when you go into this, it's going to be similar to what we saw with iOS 18, but at least it's in its own section now. And what's even better is that you could actually collapse these as well. So if you don't want to see certain ones, you can collapse them, and you could also edit them as well. So if you want to edit your pinned, you can change what you have pinned right there as well. You do also have other options for viewing, collapse all, show all that good stuff right there as well. Oh, and also in Photos, if you go to this button right here, that will create a spatial scene of a specific photo, and it will make it like 3D, and it'll make it look like you were basically there. It's like a little short video. It's very similar to what you see with Vision Pro. It's awesome. But if you don't like that, you can actually turn that off in settings now. So if you go into your photo settings and go all the way down to the bottom, we now have control for creating spatial photos. You can turn that toggle off if you do not want that. The Safari application gets some new features with iOS 26. So first off, you can see the address bar and the whole UI down there at the bottom is all new. And also if you press and hold on the address bar, we have options for tabs, and it kind of pops up. And also the background is no longer blurred like it used to be when you tapped and held on that. And I like how this kind of comes out. So you can kind of see the effect there coming out from that section. Really cool. And if you tap on the three dots right here, we do have the option to go to all tabs. Also, if you go to the three dots and go to share, we have another option here, or another change here rather. So first off, you can see that the share sheet has changed, so it's more circular and it just looks a lot better. Everything is kind of more in your face and you can tell what it is right away. But if you scroll down, we have a couple of new options here that are related to shortcuts, it seems. So we have create note, create quick link, create snippet, and run script. So all those appear to be new here in iOS 26 inside of Safari. So if I go to create note, for example, it will allow me to create a note with that URL right there. And if you go into the all tabs view, you can see the change here as well. So the tabs down here looks different than it did before on iOS 18. Also up in the top left, you can see the difference there. We also have the check mark up here in the top right instead of the done button down in the bottom right beforehand. And if you tap, by the way, up here in Safari, this is where you can get options to your tab groups. You also have plus to open up a new tab, or if you want to go right here on these three dots, you have all these different options here as well. But one of the best changes in Safari is not enabled by default, and that is inside the settings. If you go under tabs, we now have a new option for bottom. So we now have a bottom tab view, which means that it's going to look like this now. And that looks better even than iOS 18 as well. So it looks more similar to iOS 18, but it is a little bit different. I just think this is so much better than the defaults because you do get access to your tabs right away without having to tap on two different buttons to do so. And same with share. All those just pop up quicker than it did with the default layout. So I'd recommend most people to go ahead and change that to bottom unless you just really like the compact view. The Notes application gets a new UI. So first off, you can see it now shows 13 notes underneath of the name of the folder that you're in. Before, it just showed it down here in small text down in the bottom center. So now it's more, viewable right there. Also, search is at the bottom, that bottom search bar. We have the compose down here. We have the new options up here in the top. Now, if we go into a note, this is also a bit different. So take a look at the toolbar at the bottom. It's no longer that yellow color. We now just have this little floating tab bar right here, which is really nice. And if you tap on it to the text, you'll see that the toolbar here has been updated as well. So before, it kind of just ended after the Apple Intelligence logo, but now it continues and you can see the different formatting options right there. It just scrolls endlessly. Now, of course, you can tap on the 2A's as well to quickly get into the formatting, but at least it's there available in that toolbar as well, instead of just ending like it did on iOS 18. If you tap on the share button up in the top, you can see it pops out in a new animation and a new UI that comes from the top instead of coming down from the bottom. We also have an option now to export as Markdown. So if you wanted to export a note in Markdown, you can now do that and you can save it to your Files application straight from there. The Reminders application gets some nice updates with iOS 26. So first off, you can see that the boxes up top are now color coordinated. And if we go into one of our reminders lists right here, you can see this looks a little bit different as well with the floating tab bar. But more importantly, if you go to the three dots right here, we now have an option to auto categorize. So if you want to auto categorize something that you have as a reminder, if I go ahead and do that, you can see it will automatically categorize this into these sections. So it determined that this was car maintenance, Father's Day gifts, groceries, and household chores. And what's cool is that this will also update for non-iOS 26 devices as well. So it's just going to automatically do that for you. Now you can disable that by going up here and deselecting it, and you can either keep or remove the sections that it's created. And if we go back to the main home view on reminders, we also have a new button up top right here to create a list. So we now have the option to create a new list from up top, whereas before it was down here in the bottom right. Now if we go to add a new reminder, we have a couple of changes here as well. So first off, we no longer have this little line underneath of title. We have the option for date and time right here. Instead, before it was just details. You'd have to go into there and then choose date and time. But right here, it's just right here right away. And it's just in one section. And then we also have more options like list and details. So you have all your different options right here as well. So just better laid out. It's much better to add details to a reminder when you're in a pinch and when you're trying to do it quick. You can also now set a new reminder from your control center very easily. So you can just tap on that and it will populate, and you can put in your little to-do right there, or you can change it very easily right here, all from the control center. You could also do this from the action button as well. So if we go back and go to action button, if you just go over to controls and then go right here, you can just search for reminders and it will show up right here. So you can set new reminder. Now, when you press and hold on the action button, it will prompt you to add a reminder right there. And this whole interface is very intuitive as well. It's interactive and everything right there. That's a quick and easy way to do your reminders. We have a few changes in the mail application. So first off, underneath of mailboxes, it shows when it was last updated. So it says just now. And also we have the edit button up here in the top right, whereas before it was just blue text. Also, the compose down on the bottom looks a lot better now as well. Now, if we go into an inbox right here, it also shows when that was last updated right underneath of inbox. And if we go to the categories, you'll notice that all of the categories are now smaller. So they were very bulky before in iOS 18. Now they're much smaller and a little bit more quaint. They're not as in your face as they were before. So I like that. Now also, if you go into an email itself, so we're in this email right here, you'll notice that summarize up top has a new color. It's the Apple Intelligence colors right there. Also, when you get an email from a newsletter, it will show right here it's from a mailing list, and the unsubscribe button is now more prominent, and it has its own little background here. It's a little bit better looking than it was in iOS 18, and you do also have the X right next to it as well. And then if you tap on the three-dot menu, we have a new option for cleanup recommendations. So if you go into this, it says get recommendations from iCloud Mail to keep your inbox clean and free up storage by deleting old promotions, unsubscribing from mailing lists, and more. So if you tap on get recommendations, it will start it, and you will start seeing those recommendations on how to clear up some of your storage in your inbox. There's also a new animation when you do swipe gestures on a message. So not only are the buttons new, so you can see they're more circular now and they're not all interconnected like they were before. And it's also now highlighted, like the message itself is highlighted gray. That wasn't there before, but the animation when they kind of pop out is new as well. So you have to look a little bit close to see that, but it's like that on both left and right when you get the unread and remind me over there as well. Okay, so now let's move on to the messages application because we have quite a few changes in here. Starting off with the main page, you can see up top we now have our name that we're sharing with others and our photo up there front and center for us to see. Also, the UI has been changed in here as well. So we have the edit up in the top left. We have the three dots over here in the top right. If you tap on that, we get the option to filter. And by the way, for these unknown senders, we do have a feature for screening unknown senders in messages. If you go into your settings right here, so it says hide notifications and move messages to the unknown senders list. And you could also allow notifications from specific people as well. So if you want to allow notifications for specific promotions, transactions, personal, whatever, you can do that. And same with text message filter. You could add text message filters in here to categorize as well. But let's get to the good stuff, because if you go into an individual conversation or a group chat, we have quite a few changes here right off the bat. So first off, you can see when you look at the contact photo up in the top center, it will now show for a group chat, it shows 4 people and it's a lot larger than before, and it shows more contacts up there. And if you tap on that, it shows a much better view here. So it shows all all the people involved in that group chat. Before, you'd have to tap right there to be able to see everybody. Now it just shows everybody right there. And we also have a sliding menu right here to see all the photos, links, documents, locations, all of that that's been sent in that group chat right there. Before, you just have to scroll down and it would show all that stuff down here. It was not really categorized well like it is in iOS 26 right here. But most importantly, we have backgrounds now. Maybe not most importantly, but this is a cool feature that I think a lot of people are going to use. So if you go into backgrounds, you can now set a background for a group chat using some of these presets. You also have suggestions right here. You could use a custom photo from your photo library, or you can go to Image Playground and create a background using AI. So we'll just do something like, we'll just do sky, for example, this one right here, and you have different styles you could choose from as well. So maybe this one right here looks pretty cool, like sunsets. We'll tap on that and we'll go back and you can see this is what it looks like in the group chat. So pretty awesome. Maybe not the best for everybody, but I do think it's quite cool. I do like using this in social media apps and in WhatsApp. So that's pretty awesome. It will show when somebody changed the background as well. As you can see, it shows I changed it down there. Now you'll also notice it says translating in Spanish down there. The reason for that is if you tap right here and you go into info, we now have an option to automatically translate text in real time in the Messages application. So if somebody's sending a message in another language, it will translate it for you in real time as they type it. iOS 26 also introduces polls in Messages. So now if you tap on the plus, we have a new option for polls. If we select that, we have our different choices. So if I'm trying to figure out what we should see at the movies, if I say, what movie should we go see, Final Destination or F1, now people in the group chat can vote on that and it updates kind of in real time, as you can see right there. Super cool. And if somebody in the chat doesn't like the choices, they can add their own choice as well. You can go to add choice and anybody can add that and it will show who added that option. Now you'll also notice right there that we have typing indicators in group chats as well. So you'll now see typing indicators in the group chat when somebody is typing. Now also in iOS 26, you can select what text you want to copy from a text bubble. So if you haptic press on one of these right here, before you just had copy and that was it. You had to copy the entire text, but now you can choose select and you can choose what text from that bubble you want to copy. There's also now natural language search inside of the Messages application. So if you search for something, it does not have to be a direct match to pull up results. There's also an update to Genmoji. So if you tap on Genmoji inside of Messages, first off, we now get suggestions down here. We never got suggestions before. And also in iOS 18, if you wanted to create a Genmoji, you just had to type out the emoji that you wanted to create. Like you just had to type out everything. Now with iOS 26, you don't have to do that. You could just basically combine emojis to make what's called a mix emoji. So you can mix the emojis up. So if I do like this emoji, I could just add in another one by tapping on this and we'll just do like the nerd emoji. So we'll just combine these two together and it will create a kind of mixed emoji, a mixed emoji of these two and whatever else I want to add. If I want to add something else with text, I don't know what that is, but that's something it created. You could add in Saturn, some of these suggestions and other things as well. But Genmoji is a bit better here with iOS 26. It's pretty buggy right now, but you can see that's how it works. Also in the settings for Messages, we have start with photos visible and conversation background. So you can disable those if you don't like those. Also for unknown senders, again, before we just had one option to filter unknown senders in iOS 18. Now it's a lot more sophisticated where you can allow notifications, you have filters, you can filter spam, all of that right there. The phone application in iOS 26 gets some nice updates. So first off, you can see that we have a unified tab down there called Calls, which combines favorites, recents, and voicemail. So that was kind of redundant before in the phone application. So now they're all combined into a calls section. And then we also have contacts, keypad, and search down there. And up top, you can see I have my two favorites pinned. So my mom and my dad are up there favorited. That's where it shows the pinned contacts now, my favorites. And for your recent calls over here on the far right, you have a button to call back or FaceTime back somebody. That way you don't accidentally tap on their name and call them back. You have to tap on this individual button over here. And something else I just noticed is that if you have somebody that's blocked, it will now show a blocked indicator to the left of their phone number. And by the way, just look at the animation when you swipe over on these toolbars in iOS 26. It's just so beautiful. You see it in every application, but it just looks so good. It's unnecessary, but it's so good. Now, if you tap on the three dots up in the top right, you can go back to the classic phone view. So if you don't like the unified view, you can go back to that. Now, we do also have voicemails up here. So if you want to see your voicemails, this is how you get into them. You also have the option to filter by missed and spam. And then also we have call filtering. So this is interesting because you can reduce distractions from unknown callers by turning on screening. And if you go into the phone settings, you do have the option to tap recents to call. So instead of tapping the button all the way to the right, you can just tap on their name to call them if you want to. I like keeping that off so I don't accidentally call people. But down here we have the calls from unknown numbers section where you can screen incoming calls. So if you do that, it says calls from unsaved numbers will be asked for more information before the iPhone rings. So basically, you'll get a prompt, like it'll be an automated prompt that will ask the person on the other end what they're calling for. That way you can really screen these people who are calling to see if they are spam callers and if it's worth your time to pick up the call or not. There's also hold assist on iOS 26. If you are on hold on the line, your iPhone will now let you know when you are no longer on hold. In the FaceTime application, you can see the whole UI when you open up FaceTime. It looks different. And then also when you get on a FaceTime call, we have quite a few changes here as well. So first off, you can see up in the top left, it shows in a really glassy-like UI the name of the person who is on that call. Also up in the top right, we now have the option to take a screenshot instead of being down in the bottom left. And then instead of having all of our calls up top and in the center like we had before, they're all now down here in the bottom. So you can see that we have like the turn our camera on or off. We have our mute button, and then we have our three dot menu right here, which has some new options in it as well. So we have all of these, but we also have live translation. So you can translate your voice as you speak. This is also where you can access screen sharing and share play as well. And if you tap on your camera view on FaceTime, so if you did that in iOS 18, it just brought up this view right here. And then from here, you could change like different effects and things like that. But now in iOS 26, when you tap on your own camera, you get some extra options down here at the bottom, like portrait, studio light, memoji, gestures. You have the flip button right there. You have all of that now with iOS 26 in one spot, and you cannot tap to get out of it. Unfortunately, you have to tap this little button right there. So hopefully that's a bug. And there's also live translation for phone calls. So if somebody's talking to you in another language, it will now show in real time what that person is saying. It will translate it for you. The music application gets some solid updates with iOS 26. So first off, you can see the tab bar down at the bottom looks different. Also, the now playing view is much smaller and it's more translucent. And it also has that glass-like design. And you can see that when you tap on it, you do get a slight change to the interface here as well. If you tap on the three dots, that menu looks quite a bit different. Also, everything is spaced out a lot more than it was before. It's a lot easier to understand what all these options are. Also, download, favorite, and share are all up there at the top for easy access. And you'll also notice that we have this new option called Pin Song. So if you go back and go into your library right here and go all the way to the top, you'll notice that under library, we now have pinned albums, playlists, and songs. So this is an album. These are two playlists, and now we have one song right here. So these will now live at the very top of your library view. But what's really cool is that when you tap and hold on this, there's a little hidden feature here for tap action. So if you go to tap action, you can change what happens when you tap on that pinned song, playlist, or album. So if you want to play it right away, right when you tap it, you can do that. Or if you just want to go to the song, you can do that. And same with the playlists and albums. But you do have an extra option here to play, shuffle, or go to album. And if you go into the playlist section and you go to the three dots right here, we now have an option to add a new folder. So you can create a new folder and add playlists to a specific folder. So if you have a bunch of party playlists, you can add them to parties. If you have certain type of playlists for studying, you can add a playlist to a studying folder. Now, one of my favorite features in the music application with iOS 26 is auto mix. And what this does is it automatically mixes two songs together. So it basically chooses the best time to transition from one song to the next using machine learning, and it does a really good job of doing that. It's much better than crossfade, which just uses a set time to crossfade each song into another. This uses machine learning to learn when it's best. So take a look down here. It will show when it starts, going into the next song. So it says mixing right there, and it will mix into the next song with that little animation, and the album artwork also transitions into the next song very smoothly. So you can change that if you would like to in the music settings. If you go under audio, song transitions, you can change it from auto mix to crossfade if you would like to, but I think most people will like auto mix. Also in these settings, we have a section for lyrics where you can view larger text for lyrics or for pronunciation. So it says choose whether lyrics or pronunciation appears larger when both are displayed. Now here is probably my favorite feature for music in iOS 26. So if you're listening to a song with animated album artwork like this and you lock your device and you go to the lock screen, check this out. You now have full screen animated album artwork. So this looks amazing. You can see this in the control center as well. So you can see it right here. Now, of course, if you're not seeing it, if you tap on it, if you just tap right there, it will show it. But take a look at this. So you get the animated album artwork on your lock screen, and also it minimizes the time and the date up top. So it looks like that. It just looks really sleek and really nice. Now we do have some changes to music haptics as well. So if we go into our settings and into accessibility, and then if we go down here to music haptics and you turn this on, we do have some additional functionality here as well. So you can see that you can customize the music haptics to be the full mix. You can do vocals only, and you can also change the intensity of the music haptics now. So you can change it from light, medium, or strong. And again, you can do it for vocals only as well. And also if you go into settings and go down to sounds and haptics and then scroll down, we have a new section down here under built-in speaker for late night mode. So I believe that used to be an EQ for Apple Music, but now it's kind of separated and in the sounds and haptics section. We also have a slight change to the UI here for the volume limit on the external speaker. So we have a blue bar now instead of a black one, and just this whole interface looks a little bit different. And we do have that sliding animation right there, that glass little teardrop that you see when you slide that slider. The AirPods have some updates with iOS 26. So first off, you can see the new little interface there when you get the pop-up for your AirPods on your device. And then when they pop up here in settings and you go down to the bottom, we have a brand new section for AirPods beta updates. So you can now enable AirPods beta updates straight from this section inside of settings. And you can also send analytics data there as well. So if you want to enroll in the AirPods betas, that is how you can do it now. You could also now take a photo or start a video or stop a video by pressing on the stem of your AirPod with this feature right here called camera remote. So you could have it set to be press once or press and hold to invoke that. And then we also have pause media when falling asleep. So if you turn that on, it will pause your media if your AirPods, and I guess maybe in tandem with your Apple Watch, detects that you might be falling asleep. Now here's a pretty underrated feature for the AirPods and other headphones as well. If you go into your settings, general, and then into AirPlay and continuity, we have a new toggle for keep audio in headphones. And what this does is it will keep the audio playing in your headphones even if your iPhone connects to other devices like cars or speakers. You also now get charging reminders when it's time to charge your AirPods battery. And here is the splash screen that you get with the AirPods on iOS 26 as well. This just randomly popped up, but it shows charging reminders, pause media on sleep, and camera control, and it tells you a little bit more information about those. Now if we head into our settings and go into the battery section, we have a pretty big change to battery with iOS 26. So first off, take a look up top. We now have battery intelligence in iOS 26, and this is not an Apple Intelligence exclusive. So this will show you when you were last charged. So I was last charged to 79% 2 hours ago, and now I'm currently on 58%. And you'll also see down here that our charts look different as well. So it shows my daily usage down here. You can see different colors, different indicators. It just looks a lot better in my opinion. You can also go to view all battery usage, and you can get a little bit more in depth with your battery usage on your device, and you can see more details down here as well. This is all just fresh. It's pretty much the same data, but it just has a fresh coat of paint. Now, if we go back up top to the battery intelligence feature here, you can see that when you plug your phone in, it will show you how long it takes to reach 80%, and then whatever you have your charge limit set to, which mine is 90%. So it shows how long it takes until I reach those percentages for my battery. Now, it will also show this on the lock screen. So if you go to your lock screen, you can see right there, it will show 25 minutes to get to 80%. So it shows it on your lock screen, and it also shows it right here inside of the battery section in your settings. Also down at the bottom, we do have a new power mode called adaptive. So it says that when your battery usage is higher than usual, your iPhone will make small performance adjustments to extend your battery life, including slightly lowering the display brightness or allowing some activities to take a little longer. Now, taking a look at settings, we do have quite a few changes in here as well. So settings in general looks a bit bigger, like everything is a little bit larger and it looks better in my opinion. Also, we have the search bar down at the bottom, and search in iOS 26 is finally better in the settings application. I can't believe it, but search is finally better. It actually gives you pretty much everything that you're looking for when you press search. It's still not the best, don't get me wrong, but it is better than iOS 18, which is great. Also, if you go into your settings, general, and then into software updates, and then go into the automatic updates section, we now have a section called system files. So it says, automatically install system files, which improve iPhone functionality without changing the software version. So it seems like Apple is getting rid of the security response updates. They kind of combined that before by saying security responses and system files. Now it's just system files. And then if we go into keyboards, we have a new section called feedback, where you have character preview, haptic, and sound. And also you'll notice throughout the settings in iOS 26 that all the subheadings are a bit larger than they were in iOS 18, like emoji, dictation, all those. Now, if we head back into the sounds and haptics, you'll notice up top that the silent mode toggle is no longer red. It is back to being green. And then we have this microphone section right here where you can change the microphone that your iPhone uses. So you can set it to be automatic, or you can set it to always be the iPhone microphone, no matter what is connected to your iPhone. And then if you go into privacy and security and scroll down, we do have a new section here for blocked contacts. So if you go into blocked contacts, it will show all of your blocked contacts. You can add one from here as well. This used to be in the messages settings before. And then if you go down all the way to the bottom, we do also have a new security option for wired accessories, where you can allow or disallow certain wired accessories when unlocked. You get all these different options here for that. We also have a couple of new applications in iOS 26. So first off, we have the games application. This is basically just a combination of the Apple Arcade and the Game Center application. It's kind of its own little app store here, which is pretty cool. So we have these different tabs: home, arcade, play together, and library. So you can see the games that you have, your achievements, you have events, you have play together where you can play with friends. You have all your Apple Arcade games if you are an Apple Arcade subscriber, and then you have your home right here. So if you are into gaming, definitely check that out. And the other new default application is called Preview. And yes, this is the same preview from macOS. So this is where you can go to, mess with your PDF files, your documents. If you need to sign documents and annotate documents, this is going to be the new place to do it. I found that it is better than using files or notes. The journal application gets some nice updates. So you now have a map view, so you can see all the places that you've journaled on a map. We have the ability to draw now. So you can draw inside of your journal entry alongside your text and photos and everything else. You can also add multiple journals now. So if you tap on this plus right here, you can create a new journal. So if you want to separate maybe your work life from your personal life in terms of your journaling, you can now do that. And then you also have your recently deleted right here, where you can recover a deleted journal entry. The Maps application has a new UI, and you can see we have a new arrow right here next to library and recents. They're also a little bit more prominent than they were before. And if you're navigating somewhere and you need to report an incident on the road, you now have more options. You can report a crash, a speed check, traffic, road work hazard, and a road closure now. If you put in the address to a business, you will see that you now get the call, website, tickets, and menu options front and center instead of like it was before, just like any other location. So it's more easy to make a phone call if you need to. Also, you can see the UI down there. It's quite a bit different than it was beforehand. In the wallet application, if you tap on the three dots up in the top right, you can see that new menu right there. We do also have payments instead of pre-authorized payments. Also, we have autofill, expired, and notifications. If you go into autofill, it will show you what cards you have set for autofill in Safari. If you go into expired, it will show all of your expired passes. And then if you go into notifications, this will show you notifications that you will receive within the wallet application. And if you go into the wallet settings, we have a new section here for Apple Pay defaults. So it's kind of all in one section now. So it shows all your stuff right here, your default card, your shipping address, email, phone, all of that right there, which is nice. Payments on Mac Also, order tracking, if you go into that, we have a new option for orders found in mail. So you will be able to track your orders that you order online inside of the wallet application. That was supposed to be there a long time ago, but apparently it's now finally coming with iOS 26. You will be able to track your orders inside of the wallet application, and you could use like Apple Intelligence to automatically pick up on your order number and add it to your wallet application. So it says allow Siri to, so maybe it's not Apple Intelligence, it's just going to use Siri to update wallet with order tracking information from your email. There's also some pretty big enhancements to the boarding pass. So you have indoor maps, you have Find My from your boarding pass, and there's also live activities for flights. In the podcast application, if you tap on the playback speed button, before you just had to tap on what playback speed you wanted. Now, not only can you go all the way up to 3x, but also in this little menu right here, you can actually swipe over and you can see you have this little slider and it updates with haptic feedback down there, how fast or how slow you want to listen to this podcast in. And there's also a new enhanced dialogue option right there as well. So if you want to enhance the dialogue and hear voice better, if there's like background music or something else going on, you can enhance the dialogue to make everybody sound better in podcasts. And of course, down at the bottom, we do have a new UI for the tab bar and also the now playing bar similar to Apple Music. And of course, now instead of browse, it is new. And the clock application, if you go to add an alarm, you now have the option to change the snooze duration from 1 minute all the way up to 15 minutes. So before you only had the option to snooze, now you can choose the amount of time before that snooze hits. The shortcuts application gets the redesign that we see in all of the other applications, and we also get Apple Intelligence support added into shortcuts. If you go to add an action, you will see we have a brand new section here for Apple Intelligence. And if you go into that, we have multiple options here. So you can use a specific model. So whether that's ChatGPT, on-device or cloud models, and you also have other actions for specific Apple Intelligence features like Image Playground and all of your writing tools. And it's pretty cool that Apple gives you the option to use a specific model inside of your shortcuts. Now, if you're looking for ideas to use for Apple Intelligence, just go over to the gallery section, and you can see right here we have a big Apple Intelligence logo, and you can tap on that, and there are some pre-made shortcuts in here that take advantage of the Apple Intelligence features. The iOS 26 redesign also comes to CarPlay, so you will see that glass-like interface in CarPlay along with widgets and live activities. So those are now available for CarPlay. In the passwords application, we now have a view history button where you can see the history if somebody has changed a username or password, and it shows when that was changed. So it shows 1 hour ago the password was changed. If you tap on this, it will actually show you, what was changed. So if you go down here, it shows what the new password is versus what the old password was right there. So I'm not sure why you can't tap right here. You have to tap on this arrow. That's potentially a bug, but you do also have the clear history button up here as well. We also have a slight change in the calculator application. So we now have a backspace button right here. So that was removed in iOS 18, but now in iOS 26, we have a backspace along with the AC or all clear button. Also down in the bottom left-hand corner on iOS 18, that was where we can change the calculator, but now that's up in the top right and its own separate button up there in the top right. And then down here is just a plus or minus option. And the calculator history also looks cleaner in iOS 26. This update also brings quite a few accessibility features. So I did cover some of those earlier, but there are a few others that I want to talk about. So you can just see right here from the vision section alone, we do have a change with hover text. So hover text is right there. You can enable that if you want to display a large text view of items under the pointer. Also, spoken content is now read and speak. And we do also have a new option in here for accessibility reader. And you can see it says read or listen to text in a full screen view and customize fonts, layout, and background color. So you now have that option. You can also autoplay in Accessibility Reader. There's also a new option down here for head tracking. So if you go into this, this is going to use the camera to track the movement of your head to control a pointer on screen, and it tracks facial movements to perform actions. So this is really cool. We saw this in the preview that Apple showed, but you can see you can raise your eyebrows, open your mouth, smile, stick out tongue. You can do all of these things to perform a certain action. So if you go into here, you can see of all these different things that you can do, these actions you can perform perform just by simply doing something like smiling or sticking out your tongue. You also have the tracking mode, pointer speed, and these other controls down here as well for head tracking. And here's one that I mentioned earlier, but this is a big one. We now have name recognition in addition to sound recognition. So before you were able to have your iPhone detect certain sounds, but now your iPhone can detect certain names that you have set. Apple has also improved the personal voice feature. They've mentioned that, and also the UI here looks a little bit different. And then here's a feature I think a lot of people are going to love. We have share accessibility settings. So anybody who uses accessibility and you move to a new iPhone, you would know that you have to reset all of your accessibility settings every single time, and that can be a pain since there are quite a few to go through. But now you have the option to share accessibility settings and save them to iCloud. So you just have a toggle for syncing to iCloud, but if you tap on share accessibility settings, you can see we have this brand new interface here to temporarily transfer settings from your iPhone to another iPhone or iPad. So it doesn't even have to be just through iCloud. So if you tap on continue, we'll see what this does. And you can see I can essentially just airdrop my accessibility settings from this phone to another phone or iPad, which is going to save a lot of time setting up accessibility settings. And I should also mention that there is a new wallpaper for iOS 26. Right down here under featured, we have iOS, and this is the new iOS 26 wallpaper. You do have different options for the depth control, but that's it. There are no additional colors. There's just a light and a dark mode, as you can see right there. However, I tend to think that my wallpaper collections are a little bit better than the default ones. At least you'll stand out from everybody else on your device. So there you have it, guys. That is iOS 26 beta 1. Those are over 120 changes that I found thus far. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know with a comment down below. What was your favorite thing about iOS 26? I will continue to cover every single beta of iOS 26 here on the channel in the coming weeks and the coming months as the betas progress. And of course, I will have my full iOS 26 movie in September. That's going to be a banger, so stay tuned for that. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. All the links for everything will be down in the description below, as they always are. I appreciate you guys for the support. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, and I will see you guys very soon.